I was first introduced to the concept of cognitive dissonance in English class. I don't know why it stuck with me, but it did. In fact, I can't really remember much else about those classes except for having to read Fahrenheit 451 like 50 times and being so frustrated, like, why are we reading this book so much? It's not relevant to my generation. Moving on. Anyway, I don't know why my brain held on to this, but I was so fascinated with it that I wrote it down in my book and underlined it and highlighted it because it just fascinated me so much. I was obsessed with it. Cognitive dissonance is the idea that our brain cannot hold two conflicting thoughts at the same time. So in order to rectify this, your brain will slightly alter or justify one of these ideas in order to be okay. Having conflicting feelings makes us uncomfortable, so something has to be changed. It's usually pretty slow over time and almost entirely subconscious. Now this all sounds super heady, but it's actually really easy to understand with a couple examples. Let's say, for example, you love a tech company. You have to have every new phone when they release it. You love their product design. You love how user-friendly everything is. You just love this tech company. So that's one concept. You love this tech company. But then, one day, you find out something. You find out that this tech company actually outsources most of its manufacturing to a factory that uses bad practices and is actually accountable for several deaths. Now, for both of these thoughts to exist in your mind is uncomfortable. It's not a good feeling. So your brain has to decide subconsciously if this news is ignorable since it doesn't directly affect you, or if you cannot support this company anymore. Your brain will pick one of these choices as its primary choice. Cognitive dissonance makes us stressed, upset, and uncomfortable, and your brain doesn't want you to be uncomfortable. It's worth mentioning that our brain usually picks the choice that doesn't shake up our lives too much. Now, here's another example, purely hypothetical, of course. You have a celebrity or YouTuber who you just adore. You love them. But then that celebrity or YouTuber does something bad, something you disagree with, something you know morally is wrong. Your brain is subconsciously put at a crossroads and it has to choose one of the following. Either that person is no longer likable in your eyes, at least not in the way they were before, or the behavior isn't that bad, at least not bad enough to stop supporting them. This gets especially interesting and tricky for people who use media to form their identities, i.e., if you use the internet, or watch TV, or listen to music, or read books, the media is helping to form your identity, whether you would acknowledge it or not. Whether I want it to be true or not, my friends will always associate me with Lord of the Rings because I love Lord of the Rings so much. And I always associate Star Wars with my friend Jen. I always think of my friend Leslie when I see Walking Dead stuff. Things that we love become linked with us, and for many of us, they help form our identities and how we think about ourselves. We join communities based on those interests, and friendships are forged over them. So here's another imaginary hypothetical situation for you. What if you're a big fan of some intellectual property? Like, I don't know, let's pick something completely random, Harry Potter. What happens when J.K. Rowling does something not so cool? Subconsciously, things are linked, and your brain starts to have a conversation with itself. So our two thoughts are, I love Harry Potter, and J.K. Rowling did something kind of crappy. That person did a bad thing becomes Harry Potter is bad, becomes Harry Potter is bad, and therefore I am bad for liking it. Now, this is not true, of course. And more importantly, your brain doesn't want it to be true. Our brain does not want us to feel the shame of liking something that we think or know to be bad. So sometimes the train of thought of your brain trying to rectify this situation becomes, the author didn't do anything wrong. I know that sounds like a leap, but it's not. It's how our brains work. It's how our friends' brains work. It's how the brain of every person we'll ever meet works. Our own personal bias is reflected in how we consume and interact with media, especially because when we're experiencing cognitive dissonance, usually another very important mental phenomenon is occurring: confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of one's existing beliefs or theories. In a nutshell, that means when you already believe something, your brain is looking for evidence to confirm that you're right. Instead of viewing information that's being presented to us and coming to conclusions about that information, we're looking to be confirmed that what we already think is right. Most of us have beliefs deep embedded in us that will use new information to either confirm, or if the new information is at odds with what we believe, outright reject them. I don't want this video to be misconstrued. I don't want you to hear this and hear me saying, I don't think you should interact with anyone or anything that's ever done anything problematic ever. That's not what I'm saying. There's pretty much no way to exist in this current capitalist climate consuming media and food that has been made in 100% ethically ways. It's just impossible. All I'm trying to say is that after watching this video, try to be more aware of how cognitive dissonance plays out in your life, in your actions, your thoughts, and politics. If you guys like this video, be sure to subscribe. Got my finger caught in my hair. Subscribe or watch an older video. I don't know. Okay.